Hello, my name is Stephanie Lester and I am a fibre artist. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to introduce myself in case I haven't had the pleasure of actually meeting you and talking to you in person, and telling you a little bit about needle felting, or dry felting it's sometimes called, and my art, which is actually sculptural needle felting. And as you can see, I've got a few pieces behind me. And I just thought it'd be a good idea to introduce what I do, because the biggest question that I get asked is, what's in the middle? What's in the middle of the pieces? So I've got a piece here that I'm actually in the middle of, which is going to be a Pegasus, actually, once the wings and everything done. And so the biggest question is what's actually inside, because I think everybody gets that it's fibre that's actually on top. So I just want to explain that it's actually fibre all the way through. I'll show you. Here's a piece which basically I've just started. It looks a bit like, I'm trying to think of the, no, I can't think of the animal off of one of the programs. Anyway, it looks pretty alien, let's put it that way. And I start off basically with the wire skeleton and start to wrap the fibre, and you can see on these limbs where I've wrapped it round and very lightly felted. Now, let me explain what felting is. I have these needles, which are, this one is actually a spiral, but basically the industrial process of dry felting, needle felting, is a lot of these needles in beds which come down and stab into the wall, make the flat felt. And it's these needles that we use to do sculptural needle felting. So I doubt very much that you can see, but I'm going to give it a go. Is it going to focus on the needle? You might be able to see, I'm just twisting it. I think it's possibly too close. There. You might be able to see there's little barbs, okay? So little notches this far down at the bottom end. If you put wool under a microscope, it has scales on it. So the process of stabbing the notched needle into the wool actually entwines those notches of the wool together, and it slowly felts the wool together. So to start with, I always say you like tack it together. In fact, let me bring my other camera online so you can see me. Let me go to that one. There we go. So you can see down here as well. But basically, once I've just rolled it together and I can start to stab it, it really does, just to start with, just tack it together. So I've just done a couple of stabs and that has just tacked that together. It won't, if I pulled it, obviously it will come apart. It's nice and squishy. But as you can tell from the horse here, if I squeeze that, that's actually really, really solid. And also the sea turtle that you will be able to see behind me when we go back to the wider lens, that's really, really solid. And it's all about how much you felt it, how much you stab it. So if you remember, well, I say remember, it may be something in your future as well. If you've ever put a jumper in a washing machine on too hot a wash and your jumper, cardigan, whatever wool item shrinks, that's because the wool has shrunk together and then those notches have tightened and now you can't bring it back out again. So needle felting, the dry felting, is doing exactly that, but much slower. So I could leave this as flimsy as this. I mean, it would come apart and wouldn't really last. So from a sculptural point of view, I have to make shapes just like you would if you were sculpting with clay, and felt them into place. And then I can produce things like, you know, the muscle groups, etc. And that's what I do. I actually study the animal on the internet, go from the skeleton, where I'm actually going from this sort of, I suppose it's kind of Gollum-esque really, isn't it? But it's a bit alien. And then I start to add more wool. It still looks a bit, you know, odd, but it will be now that I would start to study the muscles and actually felt the shapes of the muscles. Because even though I might add fur like effect on top and you wouldn't see the muscles, it does affect how I would actually display it and how it would end up looking. So it's actually quite important to me to do that. Pop that over here. I mean, we even do quite good fun things. Like this is going to be a rather fun golden dachshund. So, and that's wool. And traditionally all felting is wool. And that's because of those properties, which is if you put it under a microscope, it has those brilliant scaled strands, which makes it really easy to felt. Obviously, there's different types of wool from different types of sheep, and you have merino sheep where it's actually much smoother and silkier, and that takes a lot longer to felt because it's not so coarse. So if you touch wool and it's coarse, it's going to be really easy to felt, and if you touch it and it's quite soft, you know it's actually going to be a bit more work, which is why in the center we tend to use what we call core wool, which is as coarse a wool as we can find, that we can actually build up that shape. So that is what is in the center, which is the answer to that question. What is in the center? Well, it's wool, but it's fiber, because I'll explain why I've said fiber rather than wool. But initially it's wool, which you get as hard as possible, and you can do with your different needles, different size needles. Like you would, if you were painting, you'd have different size brushes. We have different size needles to do different jobs. Okay, now I say if you're using wool because recent processes have enabled us to use a lot of plant-based fibers, and also just recently I came across a fabulous recycled plastic bottles. Now, as I say, this is wool, so we can see how flouncy and gorgeous that is. Let me show you that this is recycled plastic bottles. Now, how gorgeous and fluffy is that? Now, when I get it from my supplier, it's actually a bit more lumpy. It's a bit more lumpy like this. So I put it through the traditional carding machine, as you would do with all wool. That's why that wool looked like this. But isn't that fabulous? Now, as with all fibers, everything handles differently. But this goes really, really solid. So the sea turtle, which you now can see just behind me there, which was my entry, is my entry into the David Shepherd Foundation Wildlife Artist of the Year, I put this recycled plastic as the core, which it was the irony of, our plastic going into the sea is a huge issue for our marine life and sea life. And it seemed a nice irony to actually felt plastic bottles into the center of Thetis, my beautiful sea turtle behind me. But having found it for that, and the fact that it actually felt really quite solid, so it was perfect for the shell, I'm now using it in other items that I'm felting for those kind of properties. So it's quite good to have that. And also, obviously, we have a lot of people who have chosen the vegan way of life and wouldn't want to buy a kit with wool in. So we're looking at, putting different fibers in kits and things as well. So that's quite a good move in all the different directions, really. And plant-based fibers, which I haven't got out, but basically this yellow is it's a bamboo, and I've got rose fibers and nettles and many others, I've just been starting to play around with K-pop and things, but I'm not sure. Actually, the best core that I've come across is this fabulous, other than wool, is the fabulous plastic recycled bottles. And the reason why I love that is I understand that we need to get rid of plastic as much as possible. And I understand that if we've got a plastic bag, at the end of the day, even if it's made from recycled plastic bags, a bag will end up being thrown away. So for me, the hope is when I put plastic inside a creation like my sea turtle, is that it won't get thrown away. It will be loved and be put in pride of place in a home. So therefore we repurpose plastic, but in a permanent way. That's my biggest hope for using the recycled plastic bottles in my creations. Anyway, so yes, so I've explained what's in the center. It's fiber all the way through. I basically wrap around armatures in the same way that any clay sculpture is. There's often an armature or a support. I use exactly the same thing unless I'm doing something quite simple, like an egg or something like that, where, you know, obviously it would just be a shape felted. And then I sculpt, and then it's all down to what inspires me. And at the moment, I say my last inspiration was the sea turtle. I felt really quite inspired to produce Thetis for the competition. And I'm now moving on to other pieces, because I bring out a collection 3 times a year to coincide with our Blooms art show, which is in January, June and September. And what I will do is I will just put you a little link at the bottom there. There's a group of artists, there's 13 of us, and we call ourselves the Blooms, after the Bloomsbury Group. And we have an online show 3 times a year, and that's on Zoom, but you can come along and chat to us or not, just like you would if you went to an art show. You know, you might want to just come and look for a bit, and then come around and have a chat when you're ready to. But I coincide all my collections to come out with those shows, and the next one at the moment will be June, so looking forward to that. Yes, so I think that's introduced me, and hopefully enough of needle felting to answer those questions, because I know it's still a very new art form. As sculptural art form, it's only really been around since the 1980s. The industrial machines which came out with the needles was the 1830s. So bearing in mind, wet felting's been around since probably before Egyptian times, but, you know, ancient. We're relatively new. So it felt like it was worth explaining. So if you've got any more questions, please do send me a message, come and see me at any of the shows, and please do come to the Blooms. As it says, entrance is free, and you just need to come along to the blooms.co.uk website, and it will take you off to the tickets. So brilliant. Really hope to see you soon. Bye.